This video is a film study focused on what Jared Goff and guys like Jameson Williams, Isaac Tesla were able to get done in really difficult circumstances on Thanksgiving Day against the Green Bay Packers defense. It's been a super chaotic week or week and a half for Lions fans, obviously. Anytime you lose to the Packers or any rival, that is, it's going to cause ripples in how to interpret the season and possibly look forward to more positive things in the future. I want to offer some opinion here on the way that Goff played on this stage while facing constant pressure. I'm not really necessarily going to focus on the offensive line, but we'll have to focus on some of that stuff throughout the course of the plays, especially when we get the end zone angle. Generally going to focus on what Goff was able to get done despite pressure up the middle. Some very Brian Flores or Vikings-esque looking stunts by the Green Bay defense. They're very athletic. They rush the passer well, particularly with Micah Parsons. He's the finisher that they needed, clearly. Look, they're allowing almost 19 points per game in 2025, which is fifth in the NFL. Parsons has 12.5. The Lions were able to score 24 points without St. Brown, without Laporta, and 2 starting offensive linemen. Some personnel stuff that I thought was kind of interesting when St. Brown went out was Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of being thrust into the role of like a slot receiver. Now, that's actually not necessarily the case here, even though you do see him lined up next to the right tackle, Penny. So it's an empty set for the Lions on the third possession. The first 2 possessions, they got really wiped out. So Green Bay's offering a 3-man rush here. Parsons off the right side, and then the defensive tackle, 91, is going to drop out. So basically, he's zone dropping. And the Lions ran 3 particular pass concepts a lot. This is what I refer to as snag flat. So Goff is looking to his left, and that defensive tackle, number 1, is directly in the window for this snag route. I believe that's Tom Kennedy. In addition, Tesla's running into the flats, and he's covered as well. Goff quickly comes back to this, man. On one of these plays that I show you, I'll give you the time to throw. Actually, the time to catch is what I should say. And oftentimes it's like less than 4 seconds. So Goff is making the read, getting the ball out, and then as the ball is caught or hits the hands of Jameson Williams, Tesla, Tom Kennedy, whoever, you're talking about less than 4 seconds. Some of them was 3.75, some of them was 3.86 and 3.96. This one 22 yards. Like I said, third possession, they're down 10-0. This is, of course, after Branch gives up the touchdown to Wicks on the 4th down in the end zone. Same play from the all-22 angle, and you see the snag concept drawn up here. So the outside receiver, Kennedy, is going to sit down. I actually think that's Tesla. My apologies. And then the inside receiver is the tight end. He's going to run out into the flats. On the back side of this, there's Kennedy. He's the deeper in cut. And then Jameson Williams, kind of like an over route or dig, if you will, but it's more shallow than Kennedy's route. And again, Goff is looking to the bottom side of our screen to his left. And I wonder if that defensive lineman or that defensive tackle being in the window of this route to Tesla is what holds him from throwing that football. In addition, the safety is dropped down, but that actually works against Green Bay from a structural standpoint because Goff recognizes it quickly, moves to the second read, and because that, I should say actually the third read, because that safety dropped down to try to match that route from Tesla, again, I call it snag concept. You got the over route from the other side in Jameson Williams, and it almost kind of clears out this area of the field if Goff can get rid of it quick enough. Because it's a 3-man rush, ball is out, there's no pressure on him at all in this case. Very unfortunate, obviously, long-term, that guys like Christian Mahogany are out, and of course Frank Ragnow, now won't be in the picture once again. I think this is a huge moment, kind of looking back. And by the way, I didn't get anything accomplished really from a film study standpoint, other than 2 Ravens videos over the weekend because we were traveling to visit family. So, my apologies for not producing anything Lions during that time period. But this is third possession, 3rd and 13, huge completion to Kennedy. Up the left seam. I think the difference here, down 10-0, between a long field goal attempt and, of course, they're going to go down and get a touchdown, I think is dramatic. So Kennedy's going to kind of get an outside release, number 1, outside of the nickel defender here, and then run up the left seam. The inside receiver is the tight end. I think that's Ferkser. He's going to kind of sit down, and that occupies this middle of the field free safety. This is an interesting coverage. Some people would almost refer to this as like an invert cover 2, but structurally it looks like a cover 3 where these 2 guys are getting depth and playing thirds. Normally the middle of the field free safety would be here. This is a very aggressive tone, or a very aggressive stance, I should say. um, by the middle of the field, free safety, and Goff identifies it immediately, unleashes the ball to Kennedy, makes the catch, and that is the same safety that I had spot shadowed in purple that makes contact with Kennedy. I think it goes down for 23 yards. Seemed to me like Green Bay was throwing a lot at Goff post-snap from a coverage standpoint in hopes that they could force him to hesitate, and the reason why I think he played better than a lot of people initially discussed is because he processed a lot of that quickly, got the ball out, whether he had time or not in some cases, and was able to give guys opportunities to make plays. Same play from the end zone angle, so here's the setup pre-snap for the Packers. Again, this is a 3rd and 13, so if you don't get this, you're looking at a very long field goal attempt. Very Vikings-esque, if you will, and there's a lot of design here, in my opinion, by Parsons' path. So first of all, the nose tackle who's lined up over the center is going to stunt to the right side and kind of occupy the center, or try to occupy the center and the left guard. And then Parsons is going to kind of fake to his right. And what that does is you can see that the running back, Montgomery, is reading him. He's just basically looking at this tandem. And so as soon as Parsons releases to the right-hand side post-snap, the running back is going to flow in the opposite direction. You can see the timing of it perfectly. I'll try to run this back a couple of times. So as soon as Parsons steps away, eyes on there, he's got no work through this gap, or he thinks he doesn't, and then peels off in the other direction, and that's perfectly timed up with Parsons' stunt. In addition to that, one of the things I really like about this is they've lined up 2 inside linebackers here to try to really occupy the guard-tackle combo. Make them think that you could have a 6-man rush here. That's not the case. 56 and 58 are both dropping out in coverage, and I think the Lions do a pretty good job here, man. They gave Goff a chance to convert again. As bad as the offensive line played at times on Thursday, giving up pressures, sacks in some cases, they gave Goff an opportunity, gave him a chance, and at this point, I just think that's all he needs, really, is the opportunity to have a throwing lane, diagnose the coverage quickly. I have no idea how often Green Bay runs this coverage. I would generally refer to it as a cover 3. Some people would call it an invert cover 2 because of the way that safety was playing it, but those corners are a little wide for me for that to be called an invert cover 2. In any case, Goff processed it immediately, got the ball out to Kennedy to keep the drive going. We've moved to the 4th possession. Detroit was able to get into the end zone. I think the Wildcat touchdown run by Montgomery, and then the Packers, of course, went downfield and scored on another 4th down. So it's a 2nd and 5 on the 4th possession. And try to isolate this matchup here. This is a 2nd and 5. Even though it doesn't gain the 1st down, this is important if you ask me, because Goff gets immediate pressure from Wyatt, who, of course, unfortunately went out for an injury. Unfortunately for the Packers, went out for an injury. So we're talking about him matched up against 74. Immediate pressure that kind of moves Goff off his spot. He's reading down here to his left side, our bottom right-hand side of the screen. Gets flushed out because Wyatt is driving 74 back into him. And then moving to his right, throws back across his body. It's a short gain to Kennedy. This is a drive that they score on, right? Their 3rd and 4th possession, they got 2 touchdowns to close to 17-14 at halftime. So all of these, I think the margin for error for this offense dramatically smaller, clearly, with no St. Brown, no Laporta long-term, and the offensive line injuries. I think that was a big play, even though it only generated 4 yards. Same play from the all-22 angle. Ball's on the left hash. Another time where the Packers are utilizing a 4-man rush, and they're still able to get some pressure. It's not wholesale. It's not like you've got losses everywhere. And in fact, right now, it looks like Goff has the opportunity to throw, perhaps from the spacing that appears to be there as I pause it. But Jameson Williams down here is covered up, number 1. You've got an inside linebacker who's dropped out in addition in that window, so there's nothing there where Goff is initially looking. Got to move off that read. By that time, Wyatt has got to him. I just think this is an example. I included this play because I just think it's an example of how often Goff, even to get a 4-yard gain, had to get moved off his spot and find someone when he was at his 2nd or maybe even his 3rd read. We're still on that same possession, the 4th for the Lions, and it's the same concept that I showed you except a mirrored image. So to the boundary, the top side of our screen, snag flat concept. So you got a snag route out into the flats by the tight end, and then an over route attached to it. Slightly different here in that Jameson Williams is the slot or the number 2 receiver from the field. But basically what they're doing is trying to attack the boundary side with a read by Goff, the snag flat. He can get rid of that immediately. Or a route emanating from the field that works its way over into the boundary. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. And Goff gets through the first portion of this quickly. 1 and 2, I would say, are up into the boundary. Whether you want to read it snag to flat or flat to snag, he's coming back to the over route by Jameson Williams, who's 1 across the middle against, I think that's Valentine, 24. And gets away for a 25-yard gain. This is, of course, the possession where they're going to score. In my opinion, Goff's ability to get through the reads quickly, despite pressure, should be praised a little bit more. I get it that the focus is on the offensive line, the inability to really give him time consistently or enough time consistently. If you were able to give him another 0.2 or maybe even 0.3 of a second in some of these cases, I think you're looking at the opportunity for big plays. This matchup between Parsons and Radledge obviously doesn't work out well. From a Lions standpoint, they've also got 56, the inside linebacker, walked up, stacked over the center just to occupy him, and then looping him around. I think all they're trying to do is force Radledge to deal with Parsons in a one-on-one situation, and you can see why. He steps to the inside. This is just an athletic mismatch, and then sheds Radledge to the inside, gets a lane to Goff. I got that at 3.9 seconds. I guess this is the only one where I actually timed that out. And so what I mean is 3.96 seconds from the time that Jameson Williams catches it, based off of him snapping the ball right here. So more than welcome to let me know what stats are out there from Next Gen or Lions Centered, I should say. But I feel like Goff is getting through this stuff really quickly. He's forced to because of the Packers' ability to get to the quarterback, number one, and their shape-shifting post-snap with their coverages, man, zone, whatever. This will be the culminating play on the fourth possession. I think we're inside of 30 seconds left when Jameson Williams gets into the end zone. This, to me, is all Goff's recognition, pre-snap, of the defensive structure and the look that Green Bay has provided. He motioned Jahmyr Gibbs out, and then he's going to bring him back while he's making a check with the right side of the offensive line. So in my opinion, this just means he's recognized what Green Bay is doing, and he's checked to a screen to Williams. I think conceptually, a little bit of a overgeneralization here. Once St. Brown went out, Williams was just given all of those conceptual targets. It seemed to me as if some of the plays that Goff went to Williams on are routes that St. Brown would have run. And essentially Tesla became the guy who was running Jameson Williams routes. I get it that, there's probably been way more in-depth analysis of what occurred. The fact is Jameson Williams played his ass off. 7 catches on 10 targets, which I think is a season high, 10 targets. Couple of things happening here that I think deserve credit. Besides Jameson Williams breaking the tackle, man, I posted this while I was watching the game on Twitter. I try to screen record and then get plays out just to provide some analysis like instantly. It's hard to do. And a Ravens fan, man, it really caught me by surprise, was like, that's just a missed tackle. There's nothing to praise Jameson Williams on. I was like, what kind of a... I can't imagine not being able to watch another team play and evaluate them in an honest fashion. In any case, I think this is Decker. He's basically, first of all, he's riding 55 out of there. So you can see he just basically tosses him to this side and allows Jameson Williams to fit underneath of that. In addition to that, then he goes up and picks up number 20, who Tesla had kind of missed. And that's exactly where Jameson Williams cuts to go make this happen. Along with that, I think Micah Parsons believes that the play is over. So I think this is Micah Parsons right here. And I think that he must believe or interpret this as Williams is going to get tackled because he does nothing. And I believe it's Cologne who just keeps playing football. Parsons really stopped, if you ask me, bought a ticket. Not that he was necessarily going to be able to make the tackle anyway, but it really sticks out for me on their defense, any NFL defense for that matter, but theirs in particular because they play with such extreme effort and speed. This is the same play from the all-22 angle. Like I said, Jameson Williams initially lined up here. And then once Goff motions Gibbs out, he's figured everything out. They're going to switch Williams. Gibbs is basically going to return to the same spot where he lined up. I have no idea what Sewell and the right guard Radledge and the tight end are saying, but they're clearly communicating about who's going to blitz and who's not. Green Bay actually drops both of these guys out of there to the side of the screen and the Lions still make it happen. Number one, I think you got a missed block, by Tesla down here, but it's a read for Tesla, so he's assigned to go block number one, the corner, and if he can, great. If not, just move up to the safety level. So obviously he's well trained there, just unable to get the initial block done. Williams breaks the tackle, and then here we go. Decker gets 55 out of there, and then Decker will also get to this safety, or nickel DB, I think, that Tesla misses as well. Really cool moment, man, because they were able to get to, within 17-14 in the first half, where I thought Green Bay pretty much outplayed them, especially for the first quarter on both sides of the ball. But Kelvin Shepard's defense was having tremendous difficulty getting the Packers' offense off the field. All right, we've moved to the sixth possession here into the third quarter. I think this is actually their second possession of the third quarter. Detroit, of course, got the ball first and was unable to score. Something we may see more of, depending on how long St. Brown is out, is Gibbs and Montgomery on the field at the same time. And I mean, not just Gibbs running jet motion and then a run opposite of it, and or a screen to Gibbs after a play action to the running back. That seemed to be the extent of what we saw from those Pony 21 looks earlier in the year with no Laporta, and if St. Brown is out. To me, it makes sense to get both of those guys on the field at the same time. Really anomalous play here from an output standpoint. So Williams is going to run an in cut. Gibbs kind of sits down. He'll be taken over by the nickel. And then you do have a vertical, kind of post by the number 2 receiver in the middle of trips. 24 really reacts kind of like quarter half here to me. So what I mean is, to the top side, you've got the corner sitting in the flats, a safety getting depth. That looks like the half side, so I call it quarter half. Some people call it cover 6. That's fine. That's what all the Madden and college football games call it. But 24 reacts as almost as if it's man here, whereas the nickel is just matching up, I think, with Jahmyr Gibbs. And what that causes, or what really happens there, because the inside linebacker, in addition, has turned his back to run with the number 2 receiver, the inside receiver. I think that's Ferkser. Then Goff has this wide open lane. Also really nice awareness, if you ask me, by Jameson Williams. Again, he was covered up essentially in man by 24. Even though I do think this is a quarter half delineation, it just depends on how they're reading it. There's multiple variations. It's not ubiquitous to every cover 6 or quarter half look is going to have the same exact reaction. Because Williams is on an in cut, it almost looks like 24 is kind of matching that. And then Jameson Williams, the awareness to try to get out in front of Goff. I think Goff hesitated for a moment because maybe he wasn't sure he wanted to go. But once he does, Williams tries to get a block and hopefully not draw a penalty. It's close here, if you ask me. He does have his head kind of to the side. There's really no, as it was explained to me by refs in the past, there's really no to the side. It's either in front or on the side, in front or from the back, from the side, in terms of getting a penalty. I think the defender tried to draw a penalty there. Goff gets a 24-yard gain. I would love to see more of this. I actually kind of called for it in a video that I put out prior to the Thanksgiving Day game. May have came out Thanksgiving morning. I don't know. The whole 4 or 5 day stretch is a blur to me. Basically, under center, play action. This is on that same 6th possession. In my opinion, it gives the offensive line more of a competitive opportunity against these super athletic defenses, like the Packers and others. You got a vertical on the downside by Jameson Williams. Over concept, kind of, or almost a climb, if you will, from the receiver on the top side, but he's going to insert into the C gap. So he's going to insert between the right tackle and the tight end to kind of run that route. I would really like to see a whole lot of this. If you can't get things generated in the run game organically, these play actions to the running backs. Montgomery, I think, has 3 of these where it's under center, in the last 2 weeks, I should say, where it's under center, play action. Goff appears to be, looking for something. They've got that inside linebacker to turn his back again and run. And in this case, they take advantage of it. So the running back out into the flats. No one has matched Montgomery. And then he smashes into the linebacker for a 13-yard gain. In my opinion, if you get into a situation where you're unable to run the ball consistently, these under center play action concepts to have a running back kind of leaking out into the flats, maybe a little bit late, is a way to go to get them past the first level of the defense with a little bit of a delayed fashion, but such that the defensive line and maybe blitzing inside linebackers don't have an opportunity to just stop the run play. It seemed like Green Bay was really focused and targeting Gibbs when he got the ball on direct flow run concepts. I would have liked to have seen some of these types of plays with Gibbs as the potential receiver. Still the sixth possession. This is actually going to be the end of the sixth possession. Detroit gets to within 3 points. So touchdown to Tesla for 17 yards. It's jumbo 12. And what I like about what Dan Campbell and John Morton were doing is they were forcing Green Bay to kind of get their base defense on the field. So outside linebacker, and then trying to throw the football with Tesla or Jameson Williams against their base defense. So it's a play action concept. And this guy, the safety Williams, is matching up with Williams' route. And what ends up occurring here is basically Tesla carries all the way across the field and Goff gets time. It's an unusual pass rush by the Packers. They almost seem to be really slow rushing this like you would do with a really athletic quarterback, and that's not the case for Jared Goff. I'm talking about the way that these four guys rush the passer. Maybe it's just that Detroit's offensive line handled things really well. I think Sewell handled a spin move, but when they go jumbo 12 and you've got Skipper, that gives a better opportunity, in pass pro, because you really functionally have 6 offensive linemen on the field with actual pass pro skills. It's not just another tight end who, certainly does some pass pro drills, but Dan Skipper is a actual trained offensive lineman at the NFL level. Great job by Tesla to make sure he secures this football and doesn't let it hit the ground. And like I said, Detroit closes to 24-21. That was one of the situations where Goff had a tremendous amount of time. We know he was sacked 3 times, 7 quarterback hits, probably a dozen pressures on the day. 7th possession for Detroit. Unfortunately, the defense unable to get anything done. Green Bay has now pushed their lead back to 10. Under center play action, and again, it's from a jumbo personnel group. So Skipper on the field as the left tight end, and then an actual tight end set up in the slot. Gibbs with a run action. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of this on that possession where they gave the ball to Gibbs on direct flow run plays, I think 5 out of 7 plays, or maybe it was 5 out of 6. In any case, it creates enough of a pocket for Goff that he can throw the ball. This is a long throw. The ball is on the right hash. I'll give you the all-22 angle in a moment. This is a long throw from the right hash all the way outside the bottom of the numbers on the other side of the field. Now, granted, the hashes are tight in the NFL. I think they're 18 feet and 6 inches apart, something like that. So you're talking about, a little bit bigger than 6 yards. But still a long throw, if you ask me, to Jameson Williams, all the way across the field for 15 yards. Same play from the all-22 angle. Ball is on the right hash, as you can see. Again, Skipper as an actual offensive lineman, given the fact that you don't have Laporta, a tight end threat who can get the ball down the field. Even if St. Brown is back, I think you'll see more of this. I think you'll see more of the jumbo personnel groups and utilizing him as part of the pass pro to actually give Goff time. In particular, these under center concepts, in my opinion, is the way to go. This is basically a Jameson Williams route. Tesla's running the bottom side of the screen. A vertical or clear out that we saw so much of. And the over route here, if you ask me, is a St. Brown route. You just have basically a reversal of roles where they've asked, or I should say given, Jameson Williams those opportunities to be the target of the design element. The 7th possession for Detroit, we all know how it ends with the 4th and 3. I'll show you that play here in a couple of moments. We've switched now into the 4th quarter. Detroit's still down 10. The use of the quick screens to Williams, this is another concept I'd like to see more of. Even when St. Brown comes back, to be honest with you, the explosiveness, the ability to do this, I'm not sure who else on the roster besides Jahmyr Gibbs or Jameson Williams could get this screen all the way across the field for, I think, a 10 or a 12-yard gain. In any case, really cool design in my opinion because it's jumbo personnel by the Lions. So you've got Skipper and a tight end up to the top side of the screen. The Packers have responded with their base defense. So this motion across from Tesla widens up this OLB. And then the blocking scheme, the design of it at least, not the way it actually works out, since he's widened up, is to allow Sewell to go get him, Williams to catch the ball after the fake toss to Gibbs up top, and then run underneath of that block. So basically, Williams to fit underneath of this wall that Sewell would create theoretically on the outside linebacker who's been widened up by that motion. Hopefully I explained all that in a way that makes sense. So from a jumbo personnel group, it seems like Campbell and Morton have some good stuff to attack with, even though St. Brown wasn't available. And then, Williams takes it all the way across the field, which is great. I think it actually only ends up being a 9-yard gain. My apologies for that. But so I don't know why Williams isn't spot shadowed there. The speed that Green Bay plays with on defense is on display here. This is a defensive tackle, of course, went out injured. It's Wyatt. Got hurt later on this drive, I believe, or perhaps it was the next one. Who makes the tackle? If he's not there to make this tackle, Williams and Evan Williams, 33, are one-on-one up the left sideline. It just gives you an idea or an indication, if you ask me, of what Detroit's dealing with from an athleticism and speed standpoint when they're facing Green Bay. 7th possession, 3rd and 3. This is actually going to be a conversion to Jameson Williams, the top side of our screen. So Goff has sent Gibbs out in motion, or brought him back in, and what that's done is confirmed for Goff what the coverage is. Basically, it's man-free. This inside linebacker went with Gibbs, so he knows he's got man, and he understands what the protection needs to be in order to deal with that. Typically, man-free, cover one, as a 4-man rush. Sometimes Green Bay was using a 5-man rush, like you get here. So what I'm talking about is man down here with that inside linebacker on Gibbs, and then everybody else rushing the quarterback. So it's a 5-man rush with no low hole dropper out of man free. Different names for it, but in any case, this is Tesla up top. Again, I think running a Jameson Williams route, and this is Jameson Williams running the out. To me, that's what St. Brown would typically do. Easy completion for Goff. To me, when he knows what he's going to get and can set the protection, he has enough time left in the play clock to do so. Goff is going to be able to execute whether St. Brown and Laporta are there or not. Same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, I think Goff understands exactly what Green Bay is going to be in based upon the motion that the alignment, he just used, and then bringing Gibbs back into the field. Here's Jameson Williams on the left-hand side. So from a tight alignment as the number 3 receiver, and then he's going to run the out cut. The boundary side out route from Goff, the boundary side swing route to Gibbs would isolate him on this inside linebacker. In my opinion, Goff pretty much knows where he's going to go with this football. This very much, to me, looks the same as what the Lions' passing attack looked like oftentimes on 3rd downs when St. Brown was available, meaning in cut or out cut for St. Brown, and that's the first place that Goff looks. I don't know about you, it was really cool to see Jameson Williams be so integrated and involved. I would really push for that to be the case once St. Brown is back on the field. Unfortunately, like I said, we know how this one ended. The decision to go for it when you're down 10, there's 11 minutes left in the game. I've already talked about all of my criticism of it to support Dan Campbell or possibly take the other side from what I usually do. Look, Green Bay had scored 2 touchdowns in the 3rd quarter, so maybe that's what he's thinking. Hey, I need a touchdown, and then hopefully my defense can hold them to a field goal at some point, and we can catch up. In any case, on this 1st and 3, I think this is a more catchable ball than I did initially, to be honest with you. So Green Bay set up with a 4-2 in the box, okay? So a standard nickel look where they're presenting man. This is very Vikings-esque. So the way they're going to get this done is the 2 OLBs are going to drop out, and the 2 inside linebackers are going to cross blitz. Where do we see this before? I think week 9, right, against the Minnesota Vikings when they pulled off the upset. Goff gets flushed out from that middle pressure, and he's forced to throw on the run. I think this looks like a good setup, man, for Jameson Williams to catch this football. We're talking about running all the way across here against man. The OLB to his side does nothing compared to the guy on the bottom side of our screen. I'm talking about this outside linebacker here potentially walling off Jameson Williams, and that's not what he does, versus this OLB to the bottom side of our screen, the field for the Packers, who opens and tries to jam up, I think that's Ferkser 86. And that's fortunate for Williams and the Lions because it really allows Williams to run onto that space all the way across the field. This is an opportunity to catch the ball and run. I think Goff's throw could clearly be better. To me, having looked at it 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 times at this point, Jameson Williams got to make that catch. And I think that's why he's so frustrated. I think that's why he reacted like this after the play. He's angry at himself because on perhaps his best day of 2025, from a consistency standpoint, we have a drop like this that ended up hurting the team. After that failed fourth down, which, like I said, was a combination of two factors, Goff's throw being a little bit behind him and Jameson Williams with a drop, the defense actually did get a stop. I think it's the one where Amik holds Christian Watson on a third down, gives the offense the ball right back. In any case, it's on to the 8th possession. We'll start with the end zone angle first. So another under center play action concept. It's an over route from Tesla. Perhaps these are too basic and they don't have sustainability. Tesla's off screen to our right, but it's another example, if you ask me, of the running back flowing in one direction. Oftentimes the run action and the over concept go in opposite directions. Detroit, for whatever reason, against Green Bay, the run action and the over concept were going in the same direction. So interesting. I don't really have an explanation for that. In any case, I think it's Kennedy kind of sits down here as an option for Goff to throw the ball short. This is beautiful, man, to get this ball over the top to Tesla. Diving catch right here. Now, I wish we would see a little bit more effort from 74, to be honest with you. Given that he's in this position because of the injury to Christian Mahogany, there's no work for him right now, and I'm being, perhaps a little harsh, but I need to see more athleticism, more knee bend, and a little bit more effort, given that you're down 10 at home on Thanksgiving Day, and this is such an important game. Do something. Beautiful throw, like I said, against a 4-man rush, nets 18 yards. Same play from the all-22 angle. This is Tesla down here on the bottom side of our screen. Under center, play action concept. It kind of looks like cover 3 from the Packers, but these guys end up really matching up. I'm talking about the outside receivers. So it could be cover 3 match. It could be a cover 3 structure whereby they're reading 2 and releasing him if he goes inside. So I'm talking about here, the nickel defender, and then the boundary side safety who walk down just at the snap. Man match here, and then these two guys appear to possibly be reading or reacting to the routes and or block of the number 2 receivers, Kennedy up top and the tight end to the bottom. Beautiful layered throw, if you ask me, by Goff. Again, giving him the opportunity to set up within a decent pocket and then get the ball out while stepping up. I think we've moved forward 2 plays, and this is going to be the 44-yard gain to Williams. Very similar route to what we've been talking about. Over concept. In this case, it's basically against the cover 2 side. I'm talking about the downside of our screen. Goff was actually sacked, I think, on third down a couple of plays prior to this one, and it was a penalty on Nixon, I believe, the DB for the Packers, that basically awarded Detroit a first down. So it's a cover 2 look post-snap with these 2 safeties. I think this guy gets way more depth than the top side guy. And you just basically have a backside combination with Gibbs and then Williams running a quick slant. I think Gibbs' route forces this inside linebacker to the boundary, the will linebacker. I think it forces him to expand enough, and Goff basically is going to fit this throw between these 2 guys. You'll get the end zone angle so you can see what I'm talking about. Goff throws it on the other side of those guys, and at such an elevation that it's over top of the linebacker level. And once Williams makes this miss, him and Gibbs are like what we would call sideline guys, meaning get to the sideline and go. I thought maybe he had a chance to get past this guy. To me, maybe it's the usage from getting so many targets, being on the field so often during this game with St. Brown out. I would assume that Williams is on the field for almost 100% of the snaps. He didn't look like he had a 5th gear to me. This didn't look like the same type of Jameson Williams burst and acceleration. I'm not saying that he should outrun 29 and score, but to me it just didn't look like he was able to get in 5th gear, even though he gained 44 yards. Same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, you'll be able to see the angle that Goff throws this, in between the 2 inside linebackers, but also at an elevation such that the will linebacker 56 is unable to make the play. So Gibbs' route, his kind of swing route, expanding width-wise, pushing that will linebacker out a little further than maybe he wants to, and then Williams' route over the top. Perfectly thrown by Goff, maybe a little bit of wobble on it. Williams catches it on the run, and like I said, gets 44 yards. I just didn't feel like he was able to get into 5th gear on this one, try to outrun the last guy in pursuit. Finally, the failed 3rd and goal with about 3.5 minutes left. I think it's a little inside of 3:30 once the ball falls, or once Goff is sacked, excuse me. So really similar to a mesh concept here, where the running back is running the low drag from the left side down here to the right side, the bottom side of our screen. And then Tesla's drag kind of turns into a corner. It almost seems to me like the Lions think he's going to be able to get open in the top left corner of the end zone from their perspective, or just the top middle of our screen. Parsons is going to blitz. He actually gets chipped by Ferkser, the tight end, and then he'll be the guy that gets pressure. It's a zone response from the Packers. So normally mesh will have a low drag from one side, a high drag from the other, and then, let me change colors here, someone kind of sitting down, if you will, in the middle of the field. And what that does is, if the two drags, the two low, shallow crosses, whatever you want to call them, if they force an expansion by second-level defenders, then that later developing route kind of sits down in the middle of the field. I wish we had one of those here, to be honest with you. I'm not sure who it would be, because the Packers pretty much have everything covered up. Here's Parsons, by the way, stunting back to the inside. He's just got such extreme athleticism and ability to play through contact. He gets jammed, or chipped, I should say, first by 86. And then just stunts to the inside. I think Radledge ends up falling down. To me, if we had someone kind of sitting down, maybe we could get the ball to them in this lane, such that, Tesla's route has forced this inside linebacker to expand. Gibbs' route has forced this inside linebacker to expand. Maybe that's the only thing that could possibly be available, because nothing else is. Detroit, of course, had to settle for a field goal and only pull to within 31-24, which ended up being the final margin. I do have some closing thoughts. Let's start with the Williams, St. Brown, and then Tesla dynamic with Laporta being out. Williams is averaging 18.6 yards per catch this year and 16.5 yards per touch. Both of those are superior to St. Brown. Now, part of that is related to where their routes are run and the high percentage catch that St. Brown has put forth. He's got 70% catch percentage this year, which is a little suppressed from what it was a month ago. The wrist injury, other things are obviously a factor. Williams has been getting about 5 targets per game, a little bit more than 5. He was 7 of 10 in this one, so we had a superior catch percentage to what he's normally offered in 2025, which has been 60% catch percentage. I think actually slightly below, 59.3. St. Brown normally gets 9 targets per game. I'm not saying I want to see that inverted or switched, but to me, Williams gave us some evidence here that if he's given the same type of opportunities as St. Brown, he can make more plays than he's been able to. He can provide more statistical production than he's been able to do so for most of 2025. Nonetheless, Detroit still found a way to score 24 points. Like I said, the most that Green Bay had allowed in 5 weeks. 352 yards of offense on a day when the run game, and specifically Jahmyr Gibbs, was quieted. Goff finished 20 of 26. Obviously, if you've paid attention to the video this long, you know that I think he played well. I think he played better than my initial summary or evaluation would have been, while talking about the game in the reaction video that I did Thanksgiving night. 2 touchdowns. He's under constant pressure, man. He made a couple throws on the move, the big miss with Jameson Williams that I still think Williams could catch. To me, there was a totally different manner in which Goff had to process and get the ball out fast compared to Jordan Love. I saw next to no pressures from the Lions' defensive line. I just don't understand how there were 12 or 13 in that game from a Detroit defensive perspective. I think Easy shared it on Twitter. I'm not discounting him. I think he just grabbed it from the NFL site, which probably designates certain plays as pressures and certain plays as not. When I watched that cut up, I think it was like 1 minute and 20 seconds long, or maybe 2:20. I didn't see the same game as the NFL stats people, or maybe it was Next Gen, whoever calculates or calculated a similar amount of pressures on Jared Goff as what we saw on Love, just doesn't see the same game or the same dynamic as I do. I thought Parsons and the Packers really were able to disrupt Goff's flow often. I think that's indicated in the stats, and especially with the film. With time, Goff was effective. Even though he's taken hits, he found guys, right? No St. Brown or Laporta. 2 offensive line injured. Still throws for 256. Facing a Green Bay defense that had produced, they've got 32 sacks at this point. I think they're actually tied with the Lions for sacks. But to me, the consistency of the rush output. This game could be used as an example, but even recently, Detroit has not been able to get to the quarterback at all. I did not see anything near 12 quarterback pressures on Jordan Love. I certainly would think that Goff withstood 10 to 12 pressures. I don't really necessarily know how many of those are officially. I don't look at those stats. If Easy hadn't shared it on Twitter, I wouldn't have really even paid attention to it. In any case, you guys obviously know, I think Goff stood in there well, man. Without two of his best weapons, guys like Williams, Tesla, Tom Kennedy. Gibbs was held down from a yards per touch standpoint. I think maybe they could utilize him as a little bit more of a decoy, and maybe that's how things turned out. The failed possession there to open the third quarter, the turnover on downs, where Gibbs runs the ball 4 straight times, obviously is disappointing. In any case, if you guys enjoyed my film study look at Jared Goff, where I talk about many of the guys on offense who were able to step up in the absence of St. Brown, then please let me know in the comment section. Likes and comments really drive the engagement of these types of videos. Didn't necessarily mean for this one to go on 40 minutes, but I had a lot to say because I didn't get much time over the weekend to be able to put this one out. So I had it all ready and prepared for Monday. If you guys enjoyed it and you think other Lions fans would appreciate this film study look at Jared Goff, nonetheless in a losing performance, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.